Welcome to Are You Quizzing Me? I'm Vineet Nair with my co-host Aditya Kashyap. This is a quizzing trivia podcast show. Join us as we dive deep into history, science, sport, pop culture, and so much more. Let's get quizzing.
And we're back for episode number 48 of Are You Quizzing Me, your favorite quizzing trivia podcast show. Aditya and I are back for another round of quizzing. But before we get to the regularly scheduled programming where we torture each other with trivia questions, there is the small matter of the question that Aditya had asked last week. So Aditya, please go ahead with your question from last week.
Okay, so I had asked last week that if Flintstones, the TV show, the cartoon, was made today, who would be a great sponsor for it today instead of Winston Cigarettes? It should definitely be Amazon, which should be sponsoring it because they could sponsor it with their brand Fire Stick. Because Flintstone and a Fire Stick would gel so well. Should make perfect sense.
And in an Are You Quizzing Me first, I had also added an add-on to your question as to who would be the brand ambassador for the Flintstones if it was produced today. And with the very cheesy dad joke answer for it would be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Because he's The Rock.
I knew that. I honestly knew that was the answer. It is one of those times where I don't even know why I know this because it's not trivia. But I guess after 48 episodes, you just kind of understand each other.
I will leave the clever answers to you and stick with the trivia from this episode onwards. But before we go into our regularly scheduled programming, there is the matter of the audience question. Today's audience question, which I will answer at the end of today's episode, is as follows. A biologist, an astrophysicist, and an electrical engineer walk into a bar, meet a graphic designer, and they leave it becoming one of the biggest bands ever. What is the band I'm talking about? Let me repeat the question. A biologist, an astrophysicist, and an electrical engineer walk into a bar where they meet a graphic designer, and when they leave, come out as one of the biggest bands ever. Which band am I talking about? So let me just start off today's episode. So this question and related piece of trivia was sent to us by Duncan, who's a long-time listener to the show. Often provides very valuable suggestions for us. So thank you, Duncan, for sending in the question. And he wanted me to ask you this question, Aditya. Let me just put this out. I had to rephrase his question to make it a little more tough for you to answer. But here goes. The question is as follows. This carbonated drink is found all around the world, but unlike its contemporaries, it has a different color and ingredients depending upon where it's sold. The major difference being between Europe and the United States. Which carbonated drink am I talking about?
Interesting.
So let me just clarify from the beginning that I'm not talking about something like Pepsi and Pepsi Blue, right? So in this case, if it were Pepsi, Pepsi would have a different color in the US and in parts of Europe, and it would have completely different ingredients as well.
Okay. I want to say Fanta for some reason.
Okay, so I knew this would happen because when Duncan had told me, when he sent me the question, he had messaged me saying that, do you think Aditya would know the answer? And I was like, I wouldn't put anything past that bugger. He will know this answer. But I'll ask it anyway. So yes, the answer is, of course, Fanta. Do you know what the changes are and what the colors are between the countries and whatnot?
No, I wouldn't know specifics, but I feel like this is just an experiential thing. Having lived in a few countries, I feel like I've noticed that there's a difference. I never quite thought about it. So it's still a TIL for me. Go ahead, tell me.
So Fanta is more yellowish, or actually yellow, in your parts of Europe. And it's deeply orange in the US and other countries. I think even in India, we get that deeply orange version. The difference being, and according to the ingredients in Fanta Orange, which is sold in England, there is an ingredient which is not used in the American version. Can you guess what?
Something not used in the American version.
Yes.
I don't know. Orange?
Orange juice, yes. actual orange juice. So Fanta in England, basically it has carbonated water and sugar along with orange juice. It includes orange juice from orange concentrate, citrus fruit from concentrate, citric acid, carrot and pumpkin vegetable extracts, sweeteners, preservatives, natural orange flavorings and other natural flavorings in addition to other ingredients. Italian Fanta, on the other hand, is made of water, orange juice from concentrate, sugar, carbon dioxide, citric acid acidifier, natural citrus flavorings, acacia gum and ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C. Now the American version, now listen to this, and the American version has carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup, and less than 2% of the following. Like all of this combined is less than 2%. Citric acid, natural flavoring, sodium benzoate, modified food starch, glycerol ester of rosin yellow 6 and red 40, and not a drop of orange juice. So that's the difference here. I would say the UK and Italian version is much healthier comparatively. The American Fanta and I think probably the Indian version also reads like, the ingredient list reads like that of a shampoo.
Right. Okay, cool. That's a fun little TIL for me. Thank you, Duncan. That brings me to my next question, because it is a question which probably you can only guess the answer at. I'd be very surprised if you know the answer.
Oh,
but then again,
I like these.
I wouldn't put it past you. So I'm going to describe something and tell me what I'm describing. Aviation outlet says that X, and X is what you have to guess. Aviation outlet says that X is a converted Boeing 727-200. When X isn't carrying horses across the country, it can be quickly changed into your average cargo jet. X has a maximum carrying capacity of 12 horses at a time. X provides better services for horses and their owners than other shippers. USA Today says that while UPS and FedEx also offer equine travel, it doesn't provide the same authentic experience. The rates for X are $5,000 for a one-way trip. It focuses on animal comfort, making sure that the horse doesn't get startled while flying by using a specially designed stall. So as you can tell, it's basically an aviation service that is aimed at horses. Question is, do you know what X is?
I have two guesses, neither of which I think are right, but I feel I should put them out there. The first question, the first guess would be, does it have anything to do with Red Bull?
No.
No, okay. Because I thought maybe horses' wings, Red Bull gives you wings, I don't know. Okay. Number two, is this the vomit rocket? The 0G thing that goes up and then comes down and gives you weightlessness and whatnot?
No, this is a regular plane and it is meant to transport horses. Interestingly, very often it does so for the Kentucky Derby. So your athletes need the best in air travel, and hence X steps in for the horses for Kentucky Derby. But here's the question. What is X? And the reason I said that X is something you might have to guess is because X might not be a very commonly known thing, but X really hits something deep inside of me, the same part of me which answers the question at the beginning of every episode, which makes a stupid pun. So X is basically a punny little name for this airline.
Anything to do with Pegasus?
No, you're thinking too classy a name. It's a lot dumber.
Okay, let's see. The thing is, I've never been good with puns or wordplay, but let me just give it a crack here. So
neither was this person who named this. Don't worry.
Okay. Let me channel my inner Aditya. Horses and flying. Is it a horse fly?
Also America.
No. Okay.
No. That's
It's
a
not a
great
horse
guess.
fly.
But think America, think horse, and think flying.
Bojack Horseman Airlines.
No. Okay. America, Famous plane, horse.
America, famous plane and horse. Oh. Something to do with the horse's ass? No. Okay.
No? What's the most famous plane when it comes to America?
Air Force One. Air Force Horse?
That's it. Air Horse One.
Okay, I find that way much more funny than it has any right to be.
I know. I read this and I thought it was hilarious. That it's called Air Horse One.
Why am I laughing at this? This is so silly. Air Force One. Okay, that was a nice one. Oh God, give me a second.
Yeah, it took me a few minutes to recover from that when I read it as well. It's Air Horse One. You can go read all about it. There are multiple news outlets which have done reports and news pieces on it. So
Nice.
good chicken. Air Horse One.
Okay. Let me bring wordplay down from the trivia to etymology. This word, for all practical purposes, refers to a thin rhombus. A rhombus with acute angles of 45 degrees. But it's also used as a synonym for any type of rhombus. Okay. So this word, for all practical purposes, refers to a thin rhombus, but can be used as a synonym for any type of rhombus. However, today this word is known for its use in a medical context. What word am I talking about?
I was initially going to say kite, but I don't think that makes sense for medical context.
No, it's not. It's basically, it's got a medical context and let's say an over-the-counter context when it comes to medicine.
Interesting.
You wouldn't need a prescription or anything for this.
So is it a specific name for a medicine? Are we looking for like a...
It's not a specific name for a medicine. It's a general name for a particular type of something that you would use, especially during the winters, maybe.
Something like a paracetamol?
No, that's a little too much. It is not acetaminophen, which is the actual chemical name for that. Not that. Something that a normal person would know or call it. You see it in every medical store and even in supermarkets.
Before I attempt an answer, I gotta say, being in the entertainment industry, I meet a lot of people, and I am very guilty of it myself. People tend to name drop a lot, right? Oh, I hung out with XYZ, I went to that person's party.
Okay.
I think you just did the medicine man version of it. Just casually name drop the chemical compound of paracetamol. We get it, Vineeth. You're really smart. Okay. No, let me try it. Let me try this out. Tablet also doesn't seem to quite fit the bill.
You're close with tablet, but not tablet.
You said I wouldn't need a prescription for this.
Do you want a clue?
Sure, I was just going to say cream, but that also doesn't make any sense.
No. So, this word, as I told you, it comes from an old French word which literally meant rhombus. Like the meaning was a rhombus, right? It got its kind of medical or quasi-medical usage because the first product was in the shape of a rhombus. The first of this type was in the shape of a rhombus. So it got that name. And now the old French name for a rhombus, basically the Middle English for rhombus, is now used for this product or this group or category of product.
Okay, anything which holds shape, which basically means that it is unlikely that it's something like a syrup or a cream.
Yes, you would, which is why I said you'd be closer with tablet. But let me also clarify that the original product, the original or the first of its kind was rhombus shaped, but now you get it mostly in a round shape, but you can get it in still the rhombus form as well. But most people would have seen the round one, especially in India. You would have seen the round one more commonly than the rhombus-shaped one, though someone as well traveled as yourself would have seen the rhombus-shaped version as well.
I'm right now trying to think of French-sounding words.
No, it basically came from Latin to French to English, and now that's the way it is.
Is it lozenge?
Oh, very nice. It is lozenge. So the first lozenges were, rhombus-shaped. I think even now in countries like in the Middle East, I have seen, I think it was Vicks or some which had these kind of rhombus-shaped lozenges that you used to get. But now we see the Strepsils and Tuskew and all, which are all round, right? So lozenge is from the Middle English lozenge, which came from the Old French lozenge, meaning rhombus, which came from the previous Old French named los, which meant flagstone, and from the vulgar Latin lausa. So the next time you see a lozenge, just remember it was named for a shape.
Very cool. Yeah. I don't know why it just sounded vaguely French to me. So I thought, worth a shot. Pun intended. Okay. Great question. I love etymology, obviously. And this brings me to my next question. Perfect segue. We are going to talk about the origin of a name of a place. Here I have to give a shout out to HK, person regular listeners would have heard on a podcast a few times. And HK, so again, listeners would not know this, but currently I'm traveling. I'm not in Mumbai in my regular home. I was in Delhi for a few days and I was staying with HK. And he shared a lovely piece of trivia that he has also shared with me in the past. And he brought it up again because we were going around Delhi. And we crossed this iconic road that I will let you guess if you have been around Delhi, or at least our Delhi listeners might know of this road. It is a very famous road which is near Khan Market, again, one of those iconic locations that a lot of people would have heard of. And it was basically a typo, a clerical mistake that somebody made decades ago. And that's how this particular road got its name. So a lot of these roads near Khan Market have very famous names and obvious origins. So Akbar Road, Ashoka Road, Shah Jahan Road, Sher Shah Road, clear name origins. There's a specific road which has a Hindu mythological origin, except that you would not know that because there was a typo made or there was a clerical error that was made. This story came out when Delhi's Chief Commissioner A.V. Asquith was irked by this uncommon name and decided to dig deeper. He submitted a query to the New Delhi Municipal Corporation asking for details. In their reply to the Chief Commissioner, the corporation revealed that the original plan was to call the road something from Hindu mythology. And then there was a clerical error, which gave us the current name.
Okay.
So, Vineet, do you want to try to guess the name of the road?
Wow. I've been to Delhi quite more than once, but I wouldn't know the roads around Khan Market enough to. I'm very bad at orientation and routes and whatnot. So, but is there? So you said something from Hindu mythology.
Yes.
Okay. Something from Hindu mythology which was misspelled is what you said, right? It was misspelled and there was a typo.
Okay, so let me help you out here because if I was in your place, I would not know the answer either. This is from Mahabharata, firstly. That's your first clue. The second clue I'm going to give you was that it was a V that was somehow in the clerical error translated to an R or erroneously copied into an R. So the V became an R, and that's how this road gets its current name.
Okay. I'm blanking on roads from Delhi, so I'm just going to. And the Mahabharata, it's the longest epic in the world, so that does in hundreds of characters. First one that comes to mind is Eklavya. So is it Eklarya Road or something like that? No, obviously not. Wow. V got transcribed into an R. Right, so Vidhur would become Ridur. Is there a Ridur road? No, right.
Okay, you're thinking names of specific people. It is a name referring to a group in the Mahabharata?
Oh. Pandara Road.
Yes, it is.
Okay, even I've heard of Pandara Road. Okay. It was supposed to be Pandava Road.
So Pandara Road was supposed to be Pandava Road. And
Wow.
there was some clerical error back in the day, decades ago. Somebody made a mistake and wrote down the V as a lowercase v as a lowercase r. And if you think about it, you can see how that is a
Yeah, I
mistake
can
that
see it
might
happening.
happen.
I can see it happening.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Pandara Road gets its name from a clerical error, which was originally supposed to be Pandava Road.
Oh, very nice. Very nice question. I really like that one. Okay, so last episode, I had asked a couple of questions which Aditya demolished like right away. Right, like the first 3D movie and all those. I have a couple more of those. Right, and hopefully, audience, I hope you're on my side with this, that Aditya will not be able to demolish this one as easily. So, I need you to give me plus or minus 50 years is acceptable. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When was the first submarine ever made?
Ooh. First submarine ever made.
Yes.
We spoke about the first torpedo, I remember, in a previous episode. First submarine. I'm going to try and guess this is... we're looking for a decade, right?
No, 50 years. So you can give me the latter part or the first half of the second half of a century would be acceptable.
I'm going to say this has to be something... This has to have something to do with the steam engine. So I'm thinking Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess... Is it the second half of 18th century or the first half of 19th century? One of them. Second half of 18th century.
Afsos, no. That's strike one. You have 2 more strikes left to guess this.
Okay, am I too soon or too late?
Oh, that would be telling. See, with a competitor as strong as you, I have to give myself a little handicap here.
All right. I see you're not gonna make this easy for me. Okay. I'm inclined to think, or my gut says that it should be the first of 19th century, but then that would be too easy.
Why would that be too easy?
Too easy an answer. Not too easy to build a submarine. I'm not saying that building a submarine in the first of the 19th century was very easy and everybody should have done it. And if you're not building submarines, you're a waste of time. That's not my point. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to read you right now. And
Play the player, not the game.
Exactly. So I'm going to go further back and I'm going to say it's the first half of the 18th century.
No.
Oh boy. Oh man. Okay, then it has to be the first half of the 19th century.
And afsos, it is not. Now, would you believe...
Don't tell me it was like the 7th century or something.
Would you believe it was the first half of the 17th century?
No way. Really?
In the 1620s, yes. So there was this gentleman, an English gentleman by the name of Cornelius Drebbel. He built the first navigable submarine in 1620 while working for the English Royal Navy. He manufactured a steerable submarine with a leather-covered wooden frame. Between 1620 and 24, Drebbel successfully built and tested 2 more submarines, each one bigger than the last. The final, or third model, had 6 oars and could carry 16 passengers. The model was demonstrated to King James I in person and several thousand Londoners. The submarine stayed submerged for 3 hours and could travel from Westminster to Greenwich and back, cruising at a depth between 12 and 15 feet, 4 to 5 meters, for those who are paying attention. Drebbel even took King James in the submarine on a test drive beneath the Thames, making King James I the first monarch to travel underwater. So technically he was Aquaman.
Explain this to me. But explain this to me. How were they? What was the form of power that they were using? Because
so that's the thing. We know this happened. There are records of this happening. But they were tested many times after that, but we still don't know exactly how he got it to work. But we know that it did happen and that King James did travel in it. Thousands of people witnessed it, and the submarine was tested many more times in the Thames, but it couldn't attract enough enthusiasm from the Admiralty, and so was never used in combat.
I'm just not able to even imagine how that would work. That's how bad an engineer I am that I can't even figure out how.
But to be fair, you are a software engineer, right? It's not like you're a mechanical engineer and you can't figure it out. Now that would be embarrassing.
Fair enough. But if you ask me about the first software that was created, I doubt I'll be able to crack that either. This is really cool though. I like it.
Yeah.
Very cool. I wouldn't have guessed that.
A follow-up to the second of my two guess the time questions, and in this case I am going to ask you to give me within plus or minus 2 years. Okay, so within 5 years, if you give me a range within 5 years, I'll accept that.
Okay.
This I know you will get it because it's too easy for you being who you are. So if you were to classify a phone with a touch screen and with multiple functions, especially helping you in business, as a smartphone, when was the first smartphone released in the market? Bonus points if you can tell me which company did it.
I know this is... Oh, but you said touchscreen.
Yes.
So we're not talking a BlackBerry also. Okay. The first touchscreen has to be in the 90s. And since you've given me a window of 5 years, I have to basically tell you if it's the first half of 90s or the second half of the 90s. I'm going to say the first half of the 90s. So between 90 and 95.
And you would be right. It was 1995.
Okay.
Do you know which company?
Interesting. I think Apple is still a few ways
Yes,
away
they were
from
way
this.
behind on this. This was technically the right now people retrospectively looking back at it, they say that this was the first true smartphone because it did have a touchscreen. And it had all these business functions and whatnot. It didn't have apps as we know them today, but it was still good enough. Especially for 1995.
Then I'm going to make a guess. Since you're saying it had smartphone capabilities, I'm going to guess not a mobile company. I'm going to guess computer. Then maybe IBM?
See, this is why you are the Aditya. Yes, it is IBM, International Business Machines. So the IBM Simon personal communicator, known as the IBM Simon, was a handheld touchscreen PDA designed by IBM and manufactured by Mitsubishi. It was released in 1994, and it was 1 year later that the term smartphone was coined in 1995, but not in the context of the IBM Simon. But because of its features and capabilities, it has retrospectively been referred to as the first true blue smartphone. See what I did there? Blue, IBM.
I did not see that till you pointed it out, but yeah, I salute the effort.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to move from something that occupies a lot of my time today, which is a smartphone, to something that used to occupy a lot of my time growing up. X is a game that is over 300 years old. Now, we're not quite sure what the origin of X is because the historical origin of X is quite vague. There are, however, two paintings that carry visual reference to X. 1687, Princess Soubise, spelled Soubise, so I'm pretty sure that's not how it's pronounced. But Princess Soubise by Claude Auguste Beret.
Okay.
And the other painting is The Lady of Quality, and then a second half to the name which references X itself. The Lady of Quality playing X. So these are the two paintings which refer to X. X was very common growing up in India, except that people in India, at least where I was growing up, at the time I was growing up, did not refer to it as X. However, they did refer to it as Y. So most people in India would know it by the brand name Y rather than X. X and Y obviously refer to the same game. It is a one-person game that is over 300 years old, as I mentioned. Can you try to guess what X and Y are?
Okay. You said one-person game, and the first painting you mentioned sounded vaguely French. So my first guess is going to be solitaire.
Very cool, because I had mentioned the name of the painting, The Lady of Quality Playing, and I hadn't mentioned the last part in that name. It is basically solitaire. But it's not exactly solitaire.
Oh, okay.
It's a slight modification of solitaire. So X is basically something solitaire.
Okay.
If you give me Y, I will consider that as a valid response to the entire question.
Oh,
If you can tell me what the name is in India.
The name is in India. Ooh. But it is technically like a card game that they play by themselves.
Okay, alright. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what X is. X is peg solitaire. It's not played with cards.
Peg solitaire.
Yeah. What is peg solitaire known by in India?
I am ashamed to say I don't think I have ever played peg solitaire.
You might have played the Indian version of it. I'm hazarding a guess here.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it was just me. Maybe it was just my family. But it was a blast from the past when I came across this recently.
Peg solitaire, single person game.
Alright, let me give you a hint. The goal of peg solitaire is to jump one peg over another, removing those jumped and leave the last one in the middle hole.
This isn't checkers, right? No. Chinese checkers.
No, a total of 32 pegs are needed for this game.
I can officially say I don't think I've ever played this game.
Ooh, okay. So well, this might be a very niche question. It might just be me indulging myself and my own childhood at this point.
Please do.
Have you heard of the game called Brain Vita?
I have not, actually. I am ashamed to say I have not.
Again, I'm very curious about. Then I guess our listeners can help us out by telling me if they have heard of it. Was it very common? Because I grew up playing a lot of Brain Vita. It is basically in the shape of a plus sign, and there are a bunch of holes in it, and people put marbles. So this Brain Vita thing is done with marbles.
Okay.
And so there are a bunch of empty holes, and then you can put all of the marbles in it. And once you put all the marbles, there'll be a center hole which will still remain empty. And now you can start jumping one marble over the other adjacent one, and that removes the marble that you've jumped over.
Okay, let me take that back. I have played this, but I don't remember. But I still stand by the thing. I've not heard of Brain Vita. But now that you've described this, I have this vague memory of playing this with somebody when I was a kid. But I don't remember the name Brain Vita. Because to be honest, again, I haven't had that much exposure in India when I was a kid because I grew up outside India. But yes, I completely understand the game we are talking about. I have played it. But the Brain Vita thing was it like a thing from Bon Vita? Was there any particular reason it was called Brain Vita?
I think it's a brand name, and I have not been able to find too much history about Brain Vita. That's how I was searching about it. I figured out that it's called Peg Solitaire in the rest of the world. Only in India is it called Brain Vita. But I remember my mother introducing the game to me, and she referred to it as Brain Vita. So that's how I still remember that.
Nice.
And it is, I guess like it just rang a bell for you. It was a game that I played a bit growing up.
Very nice. I'm going to go and drop some names now in this story. You have to tell me how the story became relevant later. Okay. Barry Ira Geller was a comic and science fiction fan. He adapted Roger Zelazny's book, The Lord of Light, into a screenplay. Have you read Roger Zelazny, The Lord of Light? Fantastic science fiction book.
No, nothing's...
Fantastic science fiction book. It uses a lot of Hindu mythology in it. It's it's a very innovative concept what he's done it. I'm not going to spoil anything. Go read that if you have a chance. But that's not relevant here. The story is not relevant here. Just know that Roger Zelazny's book, Lord of Light, was adapted into a screenplay by Barry Ira Geller. He then got Jack Kirby of Marvel fame to illustrate the screenplay. Arthur Ray Bradbury, architect Paolo Soleri, and Buckminster Fuller were also involved in this project.
Okay.
During this process, he also got involved with the science fiction theme park in Aurora. The theme park failed, and his plan to convert Lord of Light into a movie was also derailed. However, Barry's screenplay and Kirby's illustrations were pivotal in something that happened later on. Can you tell me what?
Jesus Christ, those are some big names you dropped.
Yes.
So science fiction project.
For a movie. Let's break it down to the bare bones. Roger Zelazny's book, Lord of Light, adapted into a screenplay. Jack Kirby illustrated it. Other people also involved in this project to make the movie included Ray Bradbury, architect Paolo Soleri, and Buckminster Fuller. However, the movie got derailed, and the screenplay and Kirby's illustrations were later used in a pivotal point in history. Something which was the inspiration for an Oscar-winning movie in the last decade.
Oscar-winning movie?
Yes, that's my first clue to you.
And you said science fiction illustrations.
Yes.
Is it Argo?
Oh, yes. You are on a roll today, yes. So these illustrations were used for setting up Argo, the fictional movie that the CIA used to rescue the hostages from Iran.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So wait, was this part of the original project or only for the movie did they use the illustrations?
So the illustrations were made for the original project, right?
Okay.
But then that got derailed and those illustrations and the screenplay was languishing. And then when they were going through projects to set up this fake movie, they came across these and they used it. Hence Argo was born.
For the actual rescue project, not for the Ben Affleck.
No. For the actual rescue project.
Oh, okay.
So the original Argo in that was used by the CIA were based off these illustrations. And that entire thing was made into a movie by Ben Affleck called Argo of the same name.
Right. I really liked Argo. Great film.
Oh, it was very tense. Very tense. My God, that movie was so tense.
He does do that very well. Ben Affleck has done some great work in holding tension. And Argo was one of his lighter films. His other films are hit a lot harder.
Yeah, but my favorite of all of them is still Argo. That scene and the final scene at the airport where they get called into the Revolutionary Guard's interrogation room. Oh my God, that one really, that was like sphincter clenching. It was literally sphincter clenching.
I remember the scene where the kids or whoever are the ones putting together the shredded
Oh,
documents.
yes, the Shredder Factory.
Yeah. And they finally put that piece of paper together and they're rushing in. And from what I know and I've read, it was obviously very fictionalized and there was no such tense at the gate moment where somebody was rushing to stop them.
No. And also the real life figure, the guy who Ben Affleck plays, was a portly Hispanic gentleman.
Very cool, very cool. That's a really cool question. The question I'm going to ask you, since you did name drop a fair few names, I'm going to ask you, what are these 9 names connected to?
Okay.
Terence Donnelly, who was the publisher of the Hollywood Independent newspaper. Alice Cooper, singer.
Yes.
Les Kelly, founder of the Kelly Blue Book. Gene Autry, an actor. Hugh Hefner, obviously founder of Playboy. Andy Williams, singer. Giovanni Mazza, an Italian movie producer and co-producer of Panaria film. Warner Brother Records, so technically not 9 people, well 8 people and 1 entity. And Dennis Litke, businessman.
Dennis Litke, Alice Cooper, Warner Records. Nope, yeah. Nothing. Is it like a super band or something? Did they form like what do they call a super group?
I will give you another hint now. Okay.
Okay.
So they all donated $27,000, 778. $27,778 each in 1978 for a campaign. What was this campaign for?
Warner Records, Alice Cooper, Dennis Lidke. Who else? Who else did you mention with the other names?
Terence Donnelly, Gene Autry, Hugh Hefner, Andy Williams, Giovanni
Hugh
Mazza.
Hefner. $27,000 each. Right.
Yes.
In 1978. Was anything to do with the 27 Club?
No.
Okay, nothing to do because okay. What is Hugh Hefner doing in the same? 1978. Any other clues?
So basically, this happened at a fundraiser at the Playboy Mansion hosted by Hugh Hefner. And individual items were being auctioned off at that price point of $27,000.
So 9 such items were bought.
Yes.
9. Something to do with 9. And 1978. Some kind of memorabilia.
You could say it is very iconic. I don't know if it qualifies as memorabilia, but it is something that is very iconic.
Movie related or music related? Can you point me in that direction?
Movie.
Wait, when did Star Wars come out?
This has nothing to do with Star Wars.
Nothing to do with Star Wars. They bought 9 such things. $27,000 each. 1978. Wait, did they buy a role or something? Like screen time in a movie or something like that? Though I don't know which movie Alice Cooper and Hugh Hefner would have appeared in. No. Shaking your
Let's
head.
go as broad as possible. So it's not even one specific movie. It is movies.
And this is the Playboy Mansion, right? Are these like famous dresses worn by actresses? So like Ursula Andress bikini and...
No.
No?
It was a public campaign initially, and eventually it became a campaign by just these few people to restore something.
Is this Frank Capra's World War II footage?
No, something a lot more iconic.
Oh God. Something a lot more iconic. 1970s.
Honestly, the most iconic thing you can think of.
Oh come
When I
on,
say
now you're
film.
just baiting me with this clue. Oh God. The most iconic thing you can think of when it comes to movies.
Film related, and there are 9.
Walt Disney's... he had
No,
like...
no.
nothing like that. Okay.
Not the Seven Dwarfs, no.
No. No, I was thinking of he had like 9 old men or 12 old men. They used to call them the original animators of Disney. I thought maybe they got some of their work or something. No, but you said the most iconic in movies in general.
I didn't say in movies. I'm
Okay.
not saying in movies. I'm saying the most iconic thing when you think of movies. American cinema. What is the most iconic thing you think of when you think
So American cinema, most iconic thing, westerns basically. You're talking of westerns.
Nope. Most iconic thing. Most iconic thing when you think of American film.
When you think of American film, you think of...
What is a physical manifestation of American cinema? This was originally created in 1923. In 1978, it was restored. In 1923, you would have needed 13 people, but in 1978, you only needed 9.
Wait, what?
It is something physical. It is something that everybody thinks of when they think of American cinema. It is in Los Angeles.
The Hollywood star?
You're there, except you're not there. No, not the stars.
What am I missing?
Okay, I'm going to tell you the answer, Vineet. I'm going to put you out of your misery.
Yes.
It's the Hollywood sign. It's the Hollywood sign.
Ah! So it was Hollywood land and then it became Hollywood. So there were 13 and then there were 9.
Yes.
Oh.
And these are the 9. These are the 9 who paid to restore it in 1978.
I kind of hate you for that question and I kind of hate myself more. Because I knew that it was Hollywood land. I know that it became Hollywood. I know that it was restored. But for the life of me, it just doesn't come when I need to. It's like the opposite of that Henry James horror story, whistle and I will come. This is like, no matter how much I whistle, nobody comes. No ghost, no nothing.
I'm going to tell you, this is not your fault. I also phrased it in a specific way, which in retrospect might have led you down a wrong path. Because I was trying to get you to the fact that
Like
the physical sign
manifestation.
there.
I was thinking Captain America, John Wayne. What else was possible?
Yeah. No,
But nice.
In
Very
your
nice
in your defense entirely. There are a bunch of actually related trivia to this, which I didn't want to create a whole new question for. But so anyways, to wrap up the question, all of these people, 8 people and 1 entity, they paid $27,000 to restore the sign in 1978, and which totaled around $250,000 back then. That's how the Hollywood sign was restored. There have been multiple occasions where the Hollywood sign has been altered. And do you know of these instances? Do you know of any of these instances?
The Hollywood sign has been altered.
Yeah.
Wait, did they remove it once? I remember reading something about them removing it completely because of something.
So there have been a few. There was Hollyweed, where the last 2 O's were transformed into E. This was done in January of 1976 and January of 2017. In 1976, it was because California decriminalized cannabis.
Okay.
In 2017 was because they legalized recreational cannabis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hollyweed.
So Hollyweed was, and you can find pictures of Hollyweed. Looks pretty cool. There has been an instance in 1987 where they changed it to Hollywood. So the H was removed, and this was for protesting the hero worship of Oliver North during the Iran-Contra hearings.
Mm-hmm.
There is another instance, rather 2 of them, Hollywood, where one of the L's was removed, and this was in April 1976 and September 1987. In 1976, it was for Easter sunrise service and was viewable from the Hollywood Bowl. In 87, it was for Pope John Paul II because he was visiting. The second L was covered. I really want to find this. In 1990, apparently, it was changed to read Oil War. I'm curious how they did that. This
Oil
was to
War?
protest the Gulf War in 1990. In 1990, yeah.
Wait, who's doing this? That's what I mean. Like, who controls this? Who decides, like, I can change this?
So some of these have been actually guerrilla attempts where it has been done unofficially. So somebody has just gone up there and modified it slightly. And some of these have been done officially. So there was Holly Boob, which was done in 2021. And it was done by a YouTuber and Instagram influencer to challenge censorship on Instagram. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there has been some controversy about how much nudity is considered nudity and the differences for male and female
I had heard
nudity
about
on
that. Yeah.
social media. So Holly Boob was one of them. Jolly Good was in 1993. It is unknown who did that. So there have been quite a few instances of.
I wonder how these people would manage it. The sign is pretty big, right? I mean, like, they're like a couple of stories tall. How do they manage to change it? Like, even in 2021, if you wanted to do boob, you would have to replace a W with a B and a D with a B.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I couldn't find pictures of all of these instances. Hollyweed is something you can easily find. You can actually see, I just Googled it, you can actually see Holly Boob.
So that's the end of today's episode. But let me first ask Aditya, what is your question for this week?
So the question that I'm going to ask for next week is if lozenges were not made wherever they were made. I'm actually not sure where they were made for the first time, but they were not named with a French origin, but instead an Indian origin, what would they have been called instead?
Okay, you heard it here first. And to hear the answer for it first, join us next week. Let me go to our question. The audience question for today. The question was: a biologist, an astrophysicist, and an electrical engineer walk into a bar where they meet a graphic designer, and when they leave the bar, come out as one of the biggest bands ever. Which band am I talking about? Aditya, do you have any idea?
This would have to be Queen.
Yes, it is. Can you match the member to their profession?
Oh boy. So the only reason I know this is because I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie.
Yes.
I cannot for my life remember who was who in that.
Okay. Freddie Mercury was the graphic designer. Brian May was an astrophysicist. Basically, he had a degree in physics and did graduate work in astronomy. Roger Meadows Traylor, the drummer, had a degree in biology. And John Deacon, who played the bass, earned a degree in electronics with first-class honors. So, very educated bunch. But I would expect nothing less from the band that came out with Bohemian Rhapsody. The only proper rock opera, I would argue. So, what's your pop culture recommendation then?
I just recently finished a novel which I thought was a lovely little piece of literature. It's called The Stationery Shop in Tehran. It's a love story, and it talks about the revolution in Tehran back in 1953. And it's a moving story, and I would recommend that to anybody who wants to read something different. It's in English, obviously. I do not read any Persian, or I don't know any Pashtun. Or Arabic for that matter. So go check it out. I also want to recommend films. So we were talking about Ben Affleck and his filmography. I agree, Argo might be his best work, but The Town, a great film. Gone Baby Gone, a really good film.
Yes.
Both films really, really keep you at the edge of your seat. So check those out.
Yes. Obviously, and my recommendation for this week is a YouTube channel by the name of Bullets and Blockbusters. So this YouTube channel is called Bullets and Blockbusters, which releases these 10 to 15 minute videos on movies that never got made, or the versions of movies that we'll never get to see. So I find it fascinating that he's built an entire channel around this. If you want to know what Steven Spielberg's version of Interstellar would have been, because Interstellar was first being developed for Spielberg. If you want to know what Spielberg's original idea for Jurassic Park 3 or Jurassic Park 4 was going to be. If you want to know what the unreleased Batgirl movie was about. What if you want to know what Tim Burton's ideas for his original third Batman movie was going to be. So all these things, he covers all of these in separate videos. It's a very nice channel. I really enjoy it. If you're a movie fan like myself, it's gold mine of information in that.
Gotta check it out. Pretty cool.
That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening in. We hope you enjoyed the show and learned something new. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing to our podcast and leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Just take 2 seconds after listening to this to hit the subscribe button and to leave us a 5-star rating. It'll help us reach a wider audience and allows more people to enjoy and discover the show. We'd also love to hear from you, feedback, suggestions, and even trivia. If you want questions of yours to be asked on the show, please just send us an email or DM us on Instagram. Email is preferred because that way we can keep it anonymous. Just send us a question, and in the subject line, name the quizmaster you want to ask the question, whether it's me or Aditya. The other will definitely not look at the question, and we can go in blind, as with all our other questions. You can reach us on Instagram at areyouquizzingme, and our email ID is areyouquizzingme@gmail.com. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more episodes with you in the future. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great day.
See you guys next week.